the show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Being wise, making good decisions when you don't know what the future holds. Is that something that only comes with age and life experience, or can it be learned? And if it can be learned, I gotta know how. I'm here with Igor Grossmann, a psychology professor at the University of Waterloo in Canada, who recently wrote about this. And it looks like wisdom is something you might be able to have if you follow a few steps. Igor, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, in 5 words or less, how can I be wise? Boom, end of the interview, we're done.
Oh man, if I knew, I would be probably in a different place right now.
But you did some research analyzing how we go about making wise choices. I think it's first important how to define wisdom. And I think it's something to do with making really good choices when you don't know what the outcomes will be. Like, you don't know whether dating someone who, let's say, is a lot of fun, they're a real good time, or dating someone who's really supportive, but they stay home too much. Like, you can't compare these two things, and yet we have to make decisions like this in our life.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we can think about wisdom in different ways. And of course, the term is used in all sorts of perspectives. Like, you often use the term wise when something turned out the way you wanted it to be. And you say, oh, this was a wise thing, especially if it was a little bit outside of the box, a little bit counterintuitive. But most often when we think about wisdom, we think about hard problems. So if you think about those trade-offs, where you deal with issues where you simply don't know. If you don't even know what you don't know, like this kind of unknown unknowns, or incommensurable things where you can't put them on the same scale, apples and oranges comparisons, and yet you have to make a decision. So a classic example, like trade-off during the pandemic, or what are you going to do? Let's say as a policymaker, should you be protecting the vulnerable? Should you be protecting the economy? How are you going to navigate that? Both of them are important. What are you going to do? And so that's where the ideas of wisdom, some kind of an ability to adjudicate between different moral stances, between different realms of unknown comes in.
And you'd think only life experience would help here, but it looks like people who are good at doing this stuff often follow like some steps, right?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, let's take a step back. So,
Sure.
Like when you say life experience, well, your life experience, or can you learn from somebody else's life? And the problem there is, of course, that if you look at somebody else's life, or if you look at your past life, you don't know if it will generalize to a new situation, especially if it's unknown, especially if it's something that hasn't occurred before. Imagine you're just buying a house. You never bought a house. You're not a real estate agent. You're just buying your first house. It's not like that you would be able to generalize from your past life experience or from the life experience of Elon Musk. I mean, you probably don't have that much money. You probably don't have the same resources, the same upbringing. So how can you? So even the people that you think are very wise, that you put on a pedestal, taking something from their lives, their story, and applying to you can be very, very challenging. And so instead of that, people try to do something else. Like people try to maybe use some kind of general rules, but those are also problematic. For instance, when we invest, we have like this idea of, okay, I want to have this amount for my living expenses, this amount for savings, and this amount for something else. And this type of rules of thumb that we all follow in our lives can be great, but they're also not quite wise, because sometimes they will fail. And so what is then wisdom? So quite often what we think about when we in philosophy and in psychology talk about wisdom, what we mean by that is the ability to figure out under what circumstances you should be doing this versus that. Should you be applying this story or that story? Should you be applying this lesson that you may have learned from your life or another lesson? And that is in turn in psychology called metacognition. So it's like a particular way of thinking and regulating your thoughts, regulating your feelings, regulating your goals, so that they sort of adjust to the situation that you may be facing, and figuring out what are the features of that situation, and is your strategy actually calibrated to the needs of the situation at hand.
So metacognition, thinking about thinking. How can we apply that to be more wise? How can we apply that to make a decision between two choices that you can't really compare that well?
Well, it's a little bit like a dance. David. So, like, I mean, the idea here is sort of you come into this new situation, a lot of unknown unknowns, a lot of uncertainty. You don't even know what you don't know. And so, the first thing to ask yourself is like, well, what do I know? What do I not know? What is it that you need to inquire? Sometimes, when you do that, what's very helpful is to consider different perspectives. Also, recognize that you may not be the sort of like a walking encyclopedia, and instead of that, you need to potentially quiz your knowledge base and ask yourself, where does your information come from? Ask other people, consider how their perspectives differ from your own. And it is a dance because you're constantly calibrating against the information that you have in front of you. And it's very tricky to conceptualize that because like each of us is kind of learning it in our own way. It's not like that there is a one single recipe of, okay, intellectual humility, perspective taking, maybe be open and then you'll be wise. I mean, yes, okay, sure. Those are the possible big picture ingredients, but how do you apply them? Each of us has to learn it in our own way.
Well, let's maybe take an example. What's a decision that you think is one that's really hard to compare? You mentioned matters of the heart, maybe deciding between dating one person or another?
Or figuring out what to do when, let's say, your partner and you have some kind of a conflict. One example that I did in my work, I brought in people who were in a monogamous relationship into the lab and asked them to imagine something really evil, namely that their partner admits to them that they were unfaithful with another close friend. And it's like, okay, now like how would you go through this? What would you think? And like one way to say, well, it will be just we'll just break up. I mean, this is it. I mean, or maybe we'll come together, but like there's just like a very singular focus on two outcomes. And another approach would be, oh, wait a second. Well, this could happen. Wait a second. Why are they doing this? What happened there? To what extent was it my contribution? Maybe our relationship was not going well. Maybe something else was unfolding in the background. What are the different perspectives that may be involved? So in many situations, especially matters of the heart, but also just general interpersonal disagreements, these days we have so many different disagreements, that's what it comes down to, that you need to question not only to react to a given situation as you typically would, but also question where do your reactions come from and where the other person's perspectives are coming from.
And people who do that end up having more kind of wise outcomes regardless of age, regardless of experience?
That's right. I mean, so what we did find systematically is that age is not really, I mean, under some circumstances, of course, it gives you some experiences, but often it's not a cure to foolishness. And instead of that, it's often the variability from one situation to the next. And that's actually a good news because that means you can train that, you can improve that. We also, by the way, found that these features, the more you engage in this type of metacognition, you are more likely to be feeling better about your relationships, you're more likely to engage pro-socially with others, you have better conflict resolution.
I like this idea of like considering the opposite view. If we take this extreme example of infidelity in the relationship, most people would just say, oh, we break up, we're angry, how could you have done this? But that act of getting into your partner's mind or taking the view that maybe this infidelity was justified, as insane as that seems, it can help you come to a more wise decision about whether you want to stay together or not.
That's right. And look, our life is not linear, right? Like if we were just to predict everything going on a linear trajectory, what's the point of living? I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of curvature to our trajectories. And so when we are thinking about, for instance, these dramatic events, quite often things would happen that we would have never anticipated. And so thinking about possibly a wide range of things that may unfold can be very, very adaptive as we are planning for the future.
Well, talking to you has made me feel wiser. I know that's not in your paper, but maybe you could put that. No. Talking to Igor Grossmann might make you feel wiser. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, but I think we all benefit, and I think our wisdom does unfold when we're talking to other people. We are social animals, and it is through the interactions that often better decisions are being made.
Well, Igor, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Igor Grossmann is a psychology professor at the University of Waterloo in Canada.